Hello there, and welcome along to episode 5 of season 3 of the Guard the Ben podcast, brought to you in association with Peterbilt's Roses, winner of 30 Chelsea Gold medals and creating timeless roses since 1968. Shop online at www.peterbiltsroses.com. I hope that you all had a happy and safe Halloween, and now the clocks have changed in the UK, it feels really quite dark and autumnal indeed. One of the things I like to get out in the garden and do at this time of year, which may seem a little strange to some of you, is to get the jet wash out and clear the paths and paving of the built up algae and any grime that's built up on it over the last couple of months. It only feels like about 5 minutes ago since we were being baked by the endless summer that we had here in the UK, and I'm absolutely astonished just how quickly the patio and paving areas have gone green and slimy. I'm one of those people that also likes to clean my oven well ahead of Christmas as well, so this is one of those sort of seasonal jobs that I like to get out of the way. And you'd be really surprised just how quick and easy it lifts off before it has a chance to really get stuck on and ingrain itself to the paving. So I like to get out and give the paths and patios a good jet wash, normally at the very beginning of November, to make sure they're clean and tidy for the winter months. And you'll be really surprised just how much it lifts a space, especially if you look out onto it as we do through the patio doors during the dark winter months. So I find this is a really good thing to do. Now, of course, I'll give the patios a very good clean again, probably the end of February, beginning of March, ahead of the season next year. But I always find this quite therapeutic to get this done, and it really does make all the difference. I've also started thinking about bringing my bananas and other tender things into the greenhouse. As you know, the succulents made their way in a couple of weeks ago, but as the weather now starts to turn, we've experienced our first couple of air frosts. We're yet to have anything that's kissing the ground just yet, but the bananas have really started to slow up. And as our weather here on the south coast is a little unpredictable and the winter temperatures can bat around quite greatly during the winter months, it's good to get a job to get these in and protected under glass. Otherwise you have to replace them regularly. So the green and red bananas have made their way into the greenhouse for their winter session, freeing up a couple of large pots which I can now get on and plant with spring bedding and some bulb lasagnas. The podcast has kept me incredibly busy over the last couple of weeks, and I've been driving up and down the country creating content and talking to some really exciting guests. However, this particular episode was actually recorded here at North Lodge several weeks ago in person with someone who I classify very luckily to be a friend of mine. Today I have the pleasure in introducing you to a conversation with Kenny, who operates the account Raybould Wild on Instagram. Kenny has one of those absolutely amazing jobs in horticulture that many of us can only really dream about. His official title is the Director of Horticulture at Covent Garden, but he's also the founder of Stoke in Bloom. Now, as you can tell from the sheer length of this episode, Kenny and I had a great time recording this episode, and we could have talked about plants, environmental issues and other things for absolutely hours, but I really do hope that you enjoy our conversation. Well, today I'm joined on the Garden the Ben podcast by Kenny Reibold Wild on Instagram. Kenny, I class you as pretty much horticultural royalty. You have one of those jobs which those of us that know what you do aspire to doing. Tell everybody that's listening a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do.
Well, first off, thank you for inviting me on.
Honestly, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
It's the first one in a long time, actually. I've sort of hidden away for a little while. I suppose for those that don't know me, it's sort of I work across, I suppose, design, floristry and horticulture. Mm-hmm. As someone once said to me Kenny, darling, you're just a bit of a hybrid. You don't really fit in any of those boxes.
Well, that's just wonderful that you get to play in all of those boxes.
And you're like, I think this is a thing of like, we shouldn't have to sit in a box.
No.
Like, our profession is inherently very fluid. You know, we're working with nature, so why have we got
I've been put into a box. I'm that rose guy. Everybody forgets that I've got, I have a full horticultural degree. I'm capable of growing all sorts of things apart from roses, which, don't get me wrong, I love, but Christ, there is a bit more out there.
Well, I think I can relate with that, because people will go, I know Kenny for flowers.
Yes.
And actually, for the longest period in the last 5 years, I've been working with robotics, which is totally the opposite.
Yeah.
And then where people know me for flowers is obviously the first time round I was at Covent Garden, and obviously now I'm back there again.
So your official title, you're Director of Horticulture in Covent Garden.
In Covent Garden.
Yeah.
And I also, as part of that, sort of advise into at the moment their wider portfolio, which covers Chinatown, Soho, Carnaby Street and Seven Dials, and a few sort of...
So not areas that you would really think about having horticulture and plants and gardens and floral installations. These are really heavily sort of urban areas. You know, these are inner city locations with thousands of people moving through them, and you're gardening and doing floral design and installations.
We are planting. This is I never know what to quite call it. So Covent Garden, you could go, yes, I can understand this.
Yeah,
you know,
I think everybody would understand that, yeah.
You know, it's bar if you take something like Kew and all of those places, which obviously have huge historical ties with our profession. You know, Covent Garden, I think, is always a space that's sometimes forgotten about. Actually, its historical value and input into our industry.
Yeah.
And you know, and it's a place that attracts something like 45 million visitors a year. So I'm always boast with me and my team that our planting survives 45 million people a year. So when I hear attractions go, we get 2 million visitors a year, and I'm like, yeah,
that's an awful lot of clicks or an awful lot of views. I mean, even if only like 50, let's work on Instagram numbers. If less like 10% of those take any notice of what you do, that's still a lot of people that are seeing your work on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis.
It is, and you forget that because, you know, because it's weird when you're there, because our days are, as you can imagine, are really busy, and no day is the same. You go in with a plan, that's not what's happening.
Yeah.
You know, it's literally, you know, you're in the West End, you know, and it's like, and it's just go, go, go. But we sort of end up a little bit in silos. We've got that to do and that to do. So you don't always take in what's going on necessarily around you. And it's only then when someone tags you in something, because this has come up on that article, or this is a friend's posted that. And
I saw something actually just a week or two ago. Someone had tagged you in a post of dahlias, and it's like, oh, the dahlias are looking really good, and you had commented underneath, and I did see that.
I do try to make a point when people do that to go, no, you're welcome, it's really nice, because I feed that back. So if anyone's listening, please do shout about what the team does because it goes a long way.
No, you mentioned that. You mentioned in a private conversation several months ago how many sort of individual installations or pots, hanging baskets, areas that you were looking after. And I remember it being an absolutely vast. Can you remember?
So Covent Garden is about 580.
Yeah. 580.
And then we have off-site assets as well.
Okay.
Don't ask what the
again. What describe an off-site asset? Let's
So
pretend that we don't know what we're talking about.
Is normally a plant or a container. So we have different processes at Covent Garden. So we have
formal. It's a very formal name, an off-site asset.
Yeah, you can tell I work with corporates. That's the problem. It's sort of, you know, and
it's a planter.
And yeah, well, I think if it's late in the
it's
day,
a trough.
And I'm tired. You'll just
window box.
So what we do is we have a thing called Return to Grow, which is all about reducing the use of virgin materials in what we do. And so there's a lot of complexity around actually what is sustainable and what isn't. And sometimes recycling a plant may seem the more ethical thing to do. Yeah. Doesn't always mean that actually you're reducing its footprint. It's a very strange game.
So by recycling a plant, what you referring to by recycling a plant, as in taking a plant out of one, what did you call it, location, and moving it to another location, or moving it to somewhere where it may have the chance to regrow, reflower?
So both. Okay. So we do recondition things to different parts of the estates, and we also send things back to our nursery, and obviously some things don't make the grade and have to be destroyed, and that's partly from a plant health aspect. You know, like everyone else in central London, we suffer as much with everything as everyone else.
I can imagine it's even worse. I mean, the people absent-mindedly walking past things, picking things, breaking things. You know what I mean? I can remember being as a child, you walk past a piece of grass and you have to break a piece off and stick it behind your ear. I mean, you must have areas that are almost sort of grazed bald by people passing by.
We've learned a lot, I think, as time's gone on, and it's never perfect. If there's big events in London and people flock, and I won't mention the events because
I remember you mentioning one at a sporting event not too long ago that tried your patience a little.
Yeah,
a certain type of
and some of those crowds were really well behaved, and it was just a lot of people.
Yeah,
so, and actually, when I came in, I went, "Oh no, I'm really pleasantly surprised. Well done, guys." And then in the same breath, a smaller crowd can
be more destructive.
And it's just but that goes on a whole level, I think, of talking about sustainable tourism as well.
Yeah.
And something that I don't think London is quite grasped, where other European cities, I think, are very much now looking at this.
It's a huge subject. I mean, it's opening a can of worms. It could go on and on and on, isn't it? And again, everybody, it goes back to even the basics in your own home when you come to recycling and repurposing stuff. That actually, if it involves, for instance, as you discussed then, about taking a plant out, for instance, a hellebore, which we all know that in 8 months' time will be back in flower if you give it enough time. But is it actually carbon footprint worth lifting that, repotting it, driving it out of London? Because one is assuming that your nursery is not in central London.
Not in central London. I wish
it's got to get on a van and go somewhere. Then someone's got to unload it, water it, look after it, maybe give it a feed and some sort of tonic to make it better because it's been trampled on, and then bring it back to central London where you can then work on it. It actually is that good for the environment, or is that just an absolute nightmare and you're running around in circles chasing your tail?
So we do a lot of things. So if we have a lorry coming in, so we're very strict on our timing. So if we have a lorry coming in for a delivery, then it has to be sent back full.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is how. So we have incredibly
one in, one out policy.
Incredibly limited storage there.
Yeah. Well, that's again just well done you. That's just very, very good common sense, just for keeping vehicles off the road, isn't it? I mean, it's literally.
Well, some of it's just like, well, that's sensible. I don't, it doesn't need to have all this other weirdness added to it. And you're going, so there's the sensible part, and you're going, well, these trees can't stay on the estate. And we had one where we did an install for the floral courtyard, and we had to bring all this planting quite sort of quickly. And there was an element of budget to deliver it, but we still have to be mindful of what we're spending, and but because of that, what was, a set budget, the planting we delivered was twice that value, because all of that we had saved that was still in our nursery beds. Yeah. So all of the trees that came in for that, we owned, and we'd had them being looked after, and they cost us it was something like £15 each to return them, and that's part of the agreement we have with the nursery. So they look after them, and we pay tuppence for them to sit on their nursery beds. One
of those schemes where you buy a potted Christmas tree and send it back to a Christmas tree farm. Yeah, I've never experienced one of those. I can assume your Christmas tree doesn't come back in the condition it went in. But
no, not the size that we're. As well that we're working with, but so we do. So, and obviously you're not going to send bedding plants back, and we trial lots of different things, and we're not perfect. We're still refining it, and we've been trialing lots of different composts. So we're totally peat-free. Yeah,
which is a nightmare because nothing holds any water anymore. It's either bone dry or sopping wet.
So we use a mix of Dalefoot and Melcourt.
Yeah, so bracken-based compost.
Yeah, so Dalefoot works very well for us because of obviously how much water it holds.
Tends to be quite wet,
but also how much nutrition it holds. But there is downsides, I think, to all compost and positives to all compost. Yeah, and so sometimes that can sit slightly too wet, and it was a learning step for the team to work with a really different substrate. Yeah. And and then you take Melcourt, which it's cheap and cheerful and peat-free. Yeah. So it covers.
So I'm assuming, I'm not familiar with the brand, but I'm assuming it's 100% sort of organic ground green waste composted for 10 to 12 weeks.
So if you take Melcourt, it's a mix of things like bark and coir, and if I'm speaking honestly, I'm not sold on the coir thing. Yeah.
Well, again, it has to travel a vast quantity of miles to get to the shore.
But at the same point, I was like, I think
it comes on barges, so again, it is as low as it can be, but it's still got to travel here. Yeah.
I think we can be purists all we wish, and we're just going to shoot ourselves in the foot. And
the most important thing is you're trying to make an educated decision and you're looking at it in an analytical way, I think.
And it's also, the way we look at it is, if you go back in time, people used to mix their own compost. So they would make them, but they'd also mix them for different requirements.
Everybody became lazy. You just opened a ready to use bag and there it was. But whether it was a seeding cutting or whether it was a potting or whether it was a shrub and tree, you had 5 different types to work with, and that was it.
I liken it to as the world tries to transition away from oil, and obviously peat again is another fossil fuel. It is the oil version of our industry, and it did everything we wanted it to do. And now that we've moved away from that, it's not something that, if you're just selling this to the masses really quickly and it's a consistent thing, everything else doesn't perform to that way, because that's not the new system we're going into. So you're having to retrain people and re-educate. And so the composts so those two that I mentioned, between the Melcourt and the Dalfoot, we have trialled hugely. And for us, we've now got a mixing ratio. And there's reasons why. Because, if I take the Dalfoot, because it's got so much comfrey in it and things like that, it's packed full of stuff. But if we're filling up apple boxes, we can get staining from it. So adding the Melcourt allows us, that seems to sort of hold some of that. Open it up a little bit and not let it leach. And I've had these conversations with Dalfoot as well, and they're like, no, that's really interesting. It's like, these are things, your product is great. For us, we are doing something very different. As a commercial landscaper, I used to get it an awful lot. You never used to have it 10 years ago because everything was peat-based, but now people have planters done on their patios and they water them and out comes this black liquid, looks like Tomerite all over the paving, and it stains everything, and they go, well, what is that? It's, well, the product leaches, there's nothing I can do about it. And then, of course, they start lining the pots with stuff, and then it doesn't drain properly, and it makes it even worse. But it's a really good point that you brought up about sustainability and making educated decisions, because you might have seen the piece of media a couple of weeks ago. I decided that I had no choice but to spray an area of ground here at North Lodge, which is not something I would normally do. But literally, when faced with either spending 7 years hand weeding an area over and over and over again, or making a decision to make an informed use and use a herbicide in the garden, actually it's simply a no-brainer. And the amount of comments I had on that piece of media, and again, a lot of people won't like the fact that I did that, and I was open to the criticism, and I said, let's open a conversation, let's talk about this, because realistically, if I spray in a very controlled manner, if I could spray in a very reasonable and educated fashion, the risk level is incredibly low. Actually, that is just the easier option. It solves the problem very, very quickly. I've eliminated all of the risk factor that I can do, and actually so many people came forward on those posts across all 3 channels that I operate on and say, thank you so much for that post, because I've been beating myself up. I don't want to do it, but I've got no choice. I'm spending bloody every weekend weeding out ground elder out of this border, or I'm pulling out bindweed, or I'm doing this on this area, and I just don't have the time. Everybody says to put cardboard on it, but it's just not working. Actually, just eliminate the factors, do the risk assessment properly, and it's the people that pick up something off the shelf and don't do the risk assessment. And I saw a woman actually the other day just literally spraying Roundup all over the place. It's like, one puff would have been enough. You didn't need 7 or 8. That was it. That dandelion, he's done for. You don't need any more. And she was sort of whipping it about. The wind was blowing. It was blowing all over. You think, oh, Christ. This is, something if I talk about from gardening at home.
Yeah.
And so I say I garden at home, and I'm a horticulturist at work.
Yeah.
And at home it was built for several reasons, but the environment is one. So we don't want to use chemicals. That's our thing. I plant really densely, so I don't have to weed. Yeah. Well, again,
for those of you that haven't, let's just pause for a second. For those of you that haven't seen Kenny's garden, please do head to his Instagram. That's Raybould and Wild. His garden is absolutely exquisite. And I've only got 2 tree ferns, so I feel very, very tree fern poor.
I've got 15 now.
I nearly used a naughty word then. I very nearly used a cuss word, which I'm going to.
It's when you were
going to rise above
it.
I've got 2 great big olives. So.
The front and back garden are both very different entities, and the front was designed on that Victorian I'm going to say this, tits and teeth.
Yeah.
And it's all about show.
Yeah.
And people go, why have you done that? I said, because I can. And I want to.
I can and I will, and I want to express myself.
I'm not going to apologise for it, and I think we should be able to be artistic in the landscape, because art and science in our profession are linked, and they are yin and yang, and we don't allow that expression enough, because we're all, and I think this is where it links in with where we make failures in the garden, or we do things well in the garden. Someone's always got an opinion about that it's wrong. Mm-hmm. And, at the moment in our garden, we have a mannequin in our front garden covered in flowers growing.
I'm quite familiar with it, yeah.
And
does she have a name, by the way?
So she was done for as Victory for the celebrations earlier in the year. But most of the people on the street call her Mother Nature, and she is going to evolve. So as we hit sort of the spiritual rounds,
the green goddess or such, of
sort of October, depending on what your beliefs are, she will become slightly darker. Mm-hmm. And so we also know, we decorate at Halloween and we decorate at Christmas.
Do you?
And
I hadn't noticed.
Exactly.
This is brand new information to me.
But going back, it's when we did all of this, it was, why are we doing this? Well, because this is about the belief that we have in our slice of Blighty. Mm-hmm. And this is our little slice, and I want it to be as green and as flowery and as fun as possible. Yeah. It proves the points I believe in, and that my husband believes in. And so as part of that, it was like, well, we want to attract insects, but also what I wanted to show was that you can have an ornamental garden that contains exotic plants as well as native plants, and you still being of benefit. Our front and back gardens have also been awarded awards by the Devon Wildlife Trust, because they hit all those criteria. And it's simple things like the front garden. Well, actually, I've got blousy roses, but I've also got single roses. Yeah. I've got all the dahlias in the front are single dahlias. It's those little down to those little selections. So I don't use chemicals, but when I have houseplants come in, every single one gets chemical treated in the house. Okay, well, again, so it gets isolated in the house, and
it's like buying fish. You have to follow a certain set of decontamination.
And it's just it's an over-the-counter pesticide. It's nothing, industry-based.
But you get mealybug in your houseplants and you can never get it out.
And this is the protocol I've taken at home. So when it's coming indoors, because it's not outside.
I've got red spider mites in mine at the moment, and I really,
And we have no pest issues, so everything comes in and it gets isolated. Yeah. I had something... I bought a load of plants from a nursery that was closing the other day, and one of those did, and I got home and it's got sodding mealybug on it. And so I saw it, and I was there with the cotton bud, getting them all off.
I've got a rickrack cactus in there that I've sat in front of the TV doing that before, hand picking them off with cotton wool buds.
But it's that big thing of prevention is better than cure.
Yeah.
And in that environment, my assessment is this is, I'm not doing this outside. This is in this space. This is how I'm controlling it. And this is the reason why, because there's all these other factors. If this all goes wrong, this is more of an issue. And I would be a hypocrite to say if I don't sometimes do that. And, and I don't like using glyphosate. I don't like using these things. I have a spraying license, and I have never had to spray glyphosate partly because a lot of the places I work have a lot of stone, but I'm also where people are in a profession where they have to. I'm not going to sit there and shout at them. Because it's going, yes, I don't like glyphosate, but they're in a situation where they're having to use it, and you can have open dialogue and conversation, but also when it's someone's profession and how they're paying their bills, this is a massive subject area.
It is, yeah. Again, you see quite often posts on Facebook. Horrible platform, from people saying, "Oh, great council, they've gone round all the week here, and for some reason they sprayed the verges, they sprayed around the road signs and stuff." And you think, actually, in my eyes, that is completely unnecessary. Although I am not in charge of balancing the books for my local council
No,
how they have to keep us safe and what the huge areas they have to deal with. Decisions have to be made. You hope that the people making the decisions are educated and they've made, but that doesn't necessarily mean that filters down to the ground staff. But
so we run a community group back home called Stoke in Bloom, which is about making.
Take that one off me list, shall
Well, we'll come back to it properly, but just on because we're talking about this, so we've worked alongside. It was with the National Trust, I think, and Devon Wildlife Trust and Plymouth City Council, and it was last year a weeding programme because they've made a big commitment to trial not using glyphosate and how we could engage people. And, and I sat there and I said, look, I'm happy to trial this on this street. We got neighbours involved. I went, but long term, I said, the hypothesis here is that people, you're going to have to find different ways of clearing this. And in the West Country, we do get weeds everywhere, or plants, because I know not everyone likes the term weed. But, it's a very fertile and wet area. So coming from the southeast, councils in the southeast do not have the same issue that they have to combat of going, and, my view has always been, it's that famous saying, right plant, right place. And I'm going, we restored all the walls in our back garden, and it was like, well, I don't want that red valerian growing out of it, or that buddleia. Yeah. The little ferns and things are more than fine. And, and this was something we were working with them to go, well, that's not too much of a problem, but that, that at that point it was going, if we're not going to do anything, what that needs is people to get out their houses.
Yeah, and pull them up.
And pull them up.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, I'm very much of that belief. We go out and do these things.
Or take the flower heads off stuff so it doesn't blow everywhere.
And, and you're going, it's, so I can get what, Plymouth City Council have been very good to try and look at these different ways. Can we engage people? Can we do this? And it works in small areas, but, and they've come in with new machines that sort of go along and spin round and sort of
so almost sort of buff or polish them
out. And you're going, well, they're trying, and it's they're trying not to coat the street in glyphosate.
Well, that kind of, with playing devil's advocate here with that particular tool, it only really works if it's on a level surface. And let's face it, the weeds don't grow in level surfaces. They find cracks and crevices and loose paving stones.
And they do. Do you know what they do? To give them their credit, they do a pretty good job, and it's not perfect. And we live in an area where they do it, and a week later everything's back. Yeah.
See, down here, south coast, we've noticed, because the droughts are so deep for so long. We've had a little bit of rain today, but basically, I'm on the Tri-County border. For those who don't know, they probably know where I am. But yeah, between Dorset, Wiltshire and Hampshire, we've had estimated around 10 millimetres of rain so far this year. It's been absolutely catastrophically dry. That means that our normal weeds have decimated and disappeared, but we've got an upsurge in things like ragwort, thistle, hogweed, stuff that's really deep-rooted and can survive the dry, are really populating. Whole grass verges covered in ragwort. You never used to, 10, 15, 20 years ago, you never saw any ragwort anywhere. And now there's just drifts of yellow in places because it's one of the only things that can survive the heat. And it's, so it's also how we combat the different change of what, because these are perennial, these are deep-rooted stuff. This is not something you used to be able to, spray once. They need a couple of applications if you were going to spray, because they're prolific, and even if you trim them off, the bloody things come back. So it's a complete change in the stuff that we're seeing. And
I think what that goes down to, especially, that's that visual example of how our climate is shifting, and also how our soil health is performing in that shift. Yeah. It's sort of like, we all know, if you have a building site, the first things to turn up are normally docks. They just appear everywhere. Yeah. And they're like them natural rotivators because they're breaking everything up. And it's that, and so it's interesting. We're seeing these bigger things that are coming in because they can do that and pull, all this nutrient and moisture from much further down. Yeah. But we're going to see more of those changes that are coming. Yeah. Especially in this, as you say, on the south coast of England.
So going back to your work, what sort of team are you running?
So there's
how many are there?
So we are part of a much bigger team.
Yeah.
Because it is a site that has lots of different departments for lots of different things. This is everything from health and safety to property management, performers, so it's a much, much bigger portfolio. But if we're talking plant-based, there's myself and two in sort of my direct team. And then we have another contractor that we work with that supports us and in the wider portfolio. And then we have a few other areas that are then contracted out to other companies as well. And that will become more simplified as time goes forward, just as everything's sort of shifted around. And but as in Covent Garden, there is three of us. There will be four. Well, I always say 3.5 because I'm the half. I'm only in office part of the week. And so the boys do really well of sort of just getting out there and sort of just keeping that going. And they're pretty much, they're really good. They're there at 5:30 in the morning, and that's their choice. It's sort of, how do you want to work this? We have quite open dialogues about starting times, and they both just want to get in and get out in a positive way because it's easier to move around in the morning. And obviously this year it's been a lot of intense watering. Because it's we try to make better decisions, but we're still delivering planting in sort of the concrete jungle. And that piazza, when London decides I'm going to be 38 degrees today, and then the local field heat's more like 45. And it's just, you're like, this is... And
then the concrete and the brick and the stone is still hot at 10 o'clock at night, still radiating heat.
And you're going, look, and so we've learned different ways of watering. So it's going, we're not going to hydrate that in this temperature. So we have a thing called, like, we call flashing, where it's like, it's, you wet the top quickly and the plants, and you let that soak, and you'll do a little bit more and then you move on. So it reduces how much water we're applying. But what we have found is it kind of allows us to tick stuff along until we get a moment where it stabilises again. And we get a natural rainfall, and then it allows us to increase the moisture basis again. And so all of those things, it's, we're watering plants and it's sunny. We're not worrying about it because we can't. It's watering is probably our biggest hurdle at the moment. And, we don't... We have 3 bowsers that go out throughout the estate. So, for anyone that doesn't know, that's like a giant watering can tank with a hose on it and a battery. So
on something like a golf cart or something along that.
Well, these ones are sort of hand pushing. So
goodness me. Okay.
So the smaller ones are sort of 70 litres and the bigger ones are 180. But this is because obviously we're moving in and around the public, so it needs to be...
It's not a large quantity of water, is it, really?
No.
I'm just equating that to myself here, because obviously I've got several IBC water tanks there, a cubic metre at a time. A normal rotation on my pot watering alone, I'll go through 250, 260 litres of water twice a day. So again, one tank is only getting me maybe 10 days. Before, if we've got no rainfall in between times, which is why it's become such a problem, that actually even me with my tanks, if we don't have rain within 3 weeks, I'm running dry. I mean, literally, if it's hot and it's dry, I'm using it. Again, the thing that drives me nuts is people that save water in their water butts, like they're saving water in their bank accounts. It's like, no, the water is in the water butt to use. You don't save it in the water butt. No, you need to empty the water butt by the time it rains.
Otherwise it's going to go rancid.
So the first thing you do is you empty the water butt, and then if you need to reach for the hose, but get the water butt emptied first, because then if it rains, you've got the capacity to harvest some more.
And so we have a mix of obviously using tap and captured water. And part of that does depend on where you are in the estate, because obviously it's quite a vast space, so a lot more of our capturing's over one side of the estate. And that's how we do it, and we try to be really mindful of what's going out, and that's why we are, that's, for example, that's one of the reasons we use the Delphic mix within our compost, because it helps to retain that. And but it is a challenge, and I think jumping between growing in London and then and then living in Devon, the climates couldn't be any further apart. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, the difference between trying to sort of grow in Spain and Iceland. It's just totally different climates. And something I think that doesn't get spoken about enough in the UK is actually just how regional our growing conditions are. So
yes, yeah.
what inherently frustrates me a lot is when I'm watching famous gardening shows on the TV, and it's we're going to talk about drought tolerant gardening, and that's all you ever hear. And I'm going, well, us down in the West Country haven't got this issue. Like, yes, the rain patterns have changed, and what we're seeing is...
You're still very temperate, you know.
We're very temperate, and we are finding we get less miserable and heavier rain showers, but we're still getting that. So it's actually, how are we slowing that flow? How are we capturing that? But how are we having plants that can sit wet?
Yeah.
And then maybe...
Dry up completely, yeah.
You know, because we're in Plymouth, but all around us is temperate rainforest.
Yeah.
And, and it's going, you want to grow lavender down our way. It's like, some people are lucky and they've got the right aspect, and it's just, I did it. And
lavender for me is no problem.
No, it just melts. It's absolutely pointless. Lavender, sage, some people do it, and I know a lavender farmer over in Cornwall does it very well. Yeah. And I'm like, no, I've tried it, don't work for me, and I'm not going to try it.
Yeah.
But totally different. So when we built our back garden... our back garden is what I call a rainforest garden. It's based on different levels, but there's natives embedded into it, and there's a lot of exotics as well. And they are all moisture loving. Mm-hmm. And the garden is designed underneath to move the water around and capture it. So the house drains off into the garden, and it's allowed to flow through pipes.
See, that's living in a thatch. That's a really bad. I live in a giant bug hotel, so above our heads is like literally hundreds of tons of thatch, dozens of tons of thatch. This is giant bug hotel, so I don't have any problems whatsoever with housing ladybirds or earwigs. I've got hordes of the lacewings. They're all living in the roof above us. But when it comes to water harvesting, I mean, I can't.
No.
I've got outbuildings. That's my only. And we've got numerous outbuildings, but it does become quite difficult.
Our big thing, we live in a Victorian house, and the best thing about a Victorian house is get the water away from it as quickly as possible. Because they are great, beautiful buildings, but as soon as there's a slight leak, it all goes wrong very quickly. And
our thatcher always says, put a good hat and a good pair of boots on a house, and it'll be fine.
Yeah, and it's. But
the bits in the middle are not important. Don't get them wet.
So the back garden was designed. It was based on the levels that we existed with.
Yeah.
And it was work with what you've got. And for a few years, I just grew loads of random stuff. And then it was like, Aaron was like, I want to do something with ferns and this and that. And I was like, hold my beer. And
so going back to your tree ferns, do you have to water them like I do, or you just leave them?
It does depend. So obviously we've been a lot drier this year.
Yeah.
So I have been watering them.
So, and I'm going to ask, how regularly are you watering your tree ferns?
Probably twice a week. So I pop out.
Well, I'm going to say a nasty word to you again. I have to put about 2 gallons into the top of mine twice a day each.
Yeah.
Because it's so dry here, and they literally dry to a crisp if I don't.
So I've got a hose like everyone else. With a hose head on one of those lances on the end, and I go along and I pull it in the top, and I sort of, I don't know, fluff it around the trunk a bit, and then it looks wet, and off I go.
See, even on that basis, you don't have to worry about using tap water. But if on the scale that I have to water mine, there'd be so much chlorine in mine. So the tree ferns always come first when it comes to water, because they absolutely hate the chlorine, and they would probably be dead if I did the kind of watering I have to do on them every day. They would rapidly just go, no, I'm not having that.
So what we do is I will do a water, but we also do a misting.
Mm-hmm.
So. And so at night and in the morning, we'll put it on mist for 5 minutes, sort of, uses fraction amount
small amounts of water, but just makes the air humid.
And it's about keeping that moisture level up.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, if I dig down in our garden at the moment, it is really dry.
Mm-hmm.
For us, we've been very dry, but they're definitely plants for where we are.
Yeah.
That it's much more inclined to, where they sort of come from. And it's the same with all of the exotic, well, the Dixonias are exotic, but what I call the sort of less hardy exotic tree ferns, so the Cytheas that we grow.
Yeah, lovely. Those are the ones with the thinner trunks, aren't they?
Thinner trunks and absolutely immense leaves.
Yes,
and grow like you've given it something you shouldn't. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, I bought a 2 litre one 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I suppose it's 2.5 years ago now. So, what that big, and obviously you can't see this if you're listening, but,
So
average...
18 inches, 2 foot high, yeah.
And it's now about 15 foot tall.
No.
And with
Where do I get one of these? Where did you buy this thing from?
I get them from a really lovely guy, I think it's a chap, and apologies if it's not, called Jungle Box, who's a small sort of back garden nursery grower down in Cornwall.
Okay. I'm going to look at. I'm going to write down Jungle Box now.
I will. I'll have to find it later for you. But and so my latest
Jungle Box, I'm coming for you.
My latest Cythera to arrive was Melgaris, which is the black stemmed version.
Yes, again,
which very hard to source.
Yeah.
And I've been waiting and waiting and waiting.
I love that feeling when you finally get something.
It's like it's coming because he was like, I was growing them on. Then I was having to sort out all their passport information. And
I got an anthurium for my birthday, which I'd wanted for such a long time, and it was such a lot of money for 3 leaves. It was 50 quid for this tiny little thing, and my husband looks at me and rolls his eyes as like, and I'm like, I'm not even going to think about if I kill it. I'm going to find the right location for it. But they love a bright room, but out of direct sunlight. And as you can see, if you look right, there is 12.5 square meters of glass in our lounge. It is beyond hot and dry, which is why I have now bloody red spider mites, because it is so dry in there. I can't keep the humidity high enough. Anyway, by placing that particular plant in a particular place in that room, I've managed to keep it. It's in bright conditions, but not in direct sunlight. And I've got a big leaf on it about this long, which is, we're talking audio here. I'm saying it's about a foot long. I'm very, very pleased with it. So I've had 3 new leaves since I bought it, so I'm very happy with it.
It does get you excited. Like, it's like the sort of the Cythera Coperii. And I get confused because they've got a different name and I can't remember which one's what now. And but
they do keep changing them.
And I was like, the other one's really long, so I'm saying Cythera, so I apologise to everyone. And but the Coperii is, probably sort of, I suppose, the hardier out of all of them. And it's still frost tender, but the second half of our garden up towards the house, we can manage it without wrapping them. And I still do wrap the trunks because they won't bounce back. Yeah. Like a Dixonia, which will generally, if it gets knocked back, you can nurse it through. No, they're gone.
Well, I'm having to nurse my big one, my Fern Britain, through this year because the squirrel, as you know, took a liking to it at the beginning of the year and had all of the fronds off of it to the beginning of the season. And I ended up, and then the wind came, and I had about a dozen fronds. I normally have 30, so I had a dozen left, and then the wind took 6 or 7 of those off. Just because as they unfurl, if they get to that point where they're just the tips are just they're so tender, the wind came in from the southwest, whipped them off, and I had a half bed. Anyway, it's now sending out another 6, which is normal for this time of year. So I've kind of got a decent crown on it, but it just looked so mangy for the whole season. I've been so embarrassed of it.
It's something we've learnt. So our back garden is north facing, but we do suffer sometimes with those westerlies that come in, and obviously
swirl around.
We're down on the bit that sticks out, and sometimes we really get hit with some storms. And so we do have a tree that's growing, which is designed to act a little bit as a bit more of a shelter. Because the garden is still set down and we're surrounded by stone walls in the back, which again, I think adds to our microclimate because we're stepped, we have walls that surround it, and then you've got the gate, so the frost diffuses under the gate. So if you look at these historic sort of walled gardens, and they had all those frost holes in the walls or whatever they call them, and that was that way of trying to get the cold to sort of sink out. And so we benefit from all of those things, which enables us to do all of this stuff. But with watering, like I say, it's a lot of the time it's more just about I'm just going out to boost the moisture level. Yeah. But that's the thing for us there. That space we've created, we can do that, and we have created a totally artificial ecosystem.
Well, it sounds like you have an incredibly detailed understanding of your growing climate, and you've paid attention to where you are, because again, this is one of the biggest problems. I mean, it goes back to very, very simple plant husbandry of the right plant in the right place and knowing where the right place for that plant is. And it doesn't matter whether it's, I say, it's a tropical or an exotic or something that's tender. If you have a microclimate and you want to lean into it, I say lean into it and actually. But again, I think the biggest problem that people have is they fail because they just think, well, I want that there, and it might not necessarily want not
definitely. Like, I've had to accept I just can't grow bulbs because they rot off.
Yeah.
And I found a bit more, and I've done a lot of trialling with this because, you know, I love tulips, but, you know...
who doesn't?
And most tulips that you grow are like one-hit wonders anyway. But
the bigger, the blousier, the better.
And you know, our favourite's one called Crunchy Cummins, which always gets my husband laughing. And
it's got me laughing now.
And it's actually...
Come on, you have to describe this tulip to me. What does this look like?
It's one of those, like, I call them the spiky frilly ones.
So feathered edges.
Yeah,
on the petals.
and so it's quite, and it comes up. It's very rigid as a tulip, and it's sort of like I suppose like a lilac that goes into sort of a whiter edge with this sort of, you know, spiky, and it's just a really good looking tulip. It's not the best cut flower because it's got a weak break point on the head, which I find with a lot of those sort of beefier tulips. But in the garden, it just stands really tall. It's really reliable. It doesn't come back very well, like most of them.
They put so much energy into one bloom.
And so, you know, we've done a lot of trialling with moving over to species types.
Yeah.
And I've had much more success with them now coming back in their third year. And the same with daffodils. You know, I've found some that have worked better. You know, and so in the front, it's where I keep all those Blausia types because it's a smaller area. And then in the back, I've got things like the Cyclamanius daffodils because they're much more inclined to sort of wetter conditions. And that's what we're just trying to learn with. And I think it goes down to, you know, when people are going, oh, what if I kill it? Well, you know what? Some stuff dies. Like if when I moved in there, I went in with this attitude, I'm from the southeast, this is what I'm going to do. And I'd killed half of it. Because my own plant arrogance got the better of me, and actually Mother Nature just come and went, well, you're a twat. So, like, let's rethink about this. And I went on, and it's alongside doing a lot of projects down there. I went on this very big learning journey, and went, I just know nothing about plants anymore, and it totally changed my understanding of how to.
I mean, moving here was similar. We have very distinctive cold snaps, and we from Mark and I from Southampton by the sea, much as similar as you would be in Plymouth, and very rarely did it get cold, and very rarely did you see the snow. Then we moved to Dorchester, and again we had a continuous cold. It got cold and it stayed cold, and you had a normal winter, and that was fine. Here, our temperature fluctuates. It can be +10 one day and -10 the next, and it's that huge swing that you can't really plan for, you can't really estimate, and I've lost really large specimens before. I mean, I've literally watched the bark split open on them, and they're dead because the cold comes in that quickly and then it disappears. We've had snow here more times since we've lived in this house. We've now been here 8 years. I've had more snow in this house than I have in my entire adult life anywhere. And this roof, when it's clad in snow, it lasts 3 or 4 days longer because it's a thatch, because it's so well insulated. It sits on the roof for 5 or 6 days at a time, and then we end up with icicles like you have never seen, that you think of, you know, off of a fairy tale or a Disney film, because they come off the thatch and they're for 18 inches long because it's very slowly seeps. So as it drips in the evenings, it then freezes again.
We're the polar opposite.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, we always say if it snows in Plymouth, the rest of the country is kind of done for. And if it snows in Plymouth, you're not going anywhere. It's you know, it's always joking like we're the San Francisco of Britain. With if you look at all the big hills that we have, and but it was April last year, and there was that freak snowstorm that sort of hit the west coast of the UK, so up through Wales, through Devon, all of that, and Cornwall. And I was driving back from London sort of late at night, and driving along, and there was no snow forecast, and it was this big thing on. Everyone was like, I've just woken up to all this snow, and I'm driving through Devon, and when you drive through Devon, you realise how wide it is as a county. And I'm like, what the hell is that snow? And it was about 6 inches deep at one point, and I'm hitting Plymouth. I'm like, there's snow in Plymouth. I'm like, well, this is unusual.
This is unnerving.
And I got to a mile from my house of nothing.
Okay.
And the same spot, it doesn't matter what happens.
They're mopping your brow as you drive along the road.
It's that area of Plymouth we just do not get any. And, you know, and that we've come out of that winter that had been quite cold for a lot of people as well. And even in sort of the outer regions of Plymouth have been quite cold. But for us, you know, we've been there 5 years, and I've probably seen 7 frosts on our garden.
Really, is that it?
And they tend to, you know, they might, you know, dust the rooftop, but they don't. It gets cold, and I still can't. There is things I still can't get through.
Mm-hmm.
But, the last 2 winters, all my aeoniums have stayed in the back garden. They get a little bit of damage, obviously, but nothing, to write home about as such. And it's just playing with those things and going, what is...
I have to take all of mine into the greenhouse every winter. And again, it's just a lottery win or a lottery spin of the wheel, whether they're going to go or not. Because, again, you put in a collection of maybe 20 plants, but has a value when you purchase them of maybe £6, £7, £8 a piece. And I know to a lot of people that sounds a lot of money, but you put them into the greenhouse, you think, okay, if I switch the heater on, how much is the heater going to cost me to run versus what it's costing me to keep the plants? Actually, I tend to put them into the unheated greenhouse. And if it gets really cold, as in it's going to be -5, I'll go up and pop the heater on just on the back. But it's the ones that catch you unawares. And sometimes the temperature, AI thing, I sat over in the corner, I'm pointing to the nectar. Because you ask it what the temperature is going to be, and she says -3. You think, -3, that's fine. And then it turns out to be -8. It's like, well, that's a different kettle of fish, and everything's dead. But that's just the way it is sometimes.
It is the way it is, and I think it's like yourself. I'm an avid collector of all sorts of plants. And
so, while we're on the subject, what is your favourite plant? Can I get you to name a favourite plant or a favourite group of plants?
It's difficult. It changes.
Come on, people make me do it all the time.
So as a flower, I think tulips have to be there.
Okay, yeah.
I've just got I think as a tree, I'm quite fond of ginkgos.
Yeah.
And also Tuna sinensis.
Mm-hmm.
Just because a tree that has that many bright pink leaves, I think, deserves a spot wherever you can put it. And then it does, it changes. And because it's not that I don't love one plant more than the other. It depends what's inspiring me at the time.
Yeah.
Like Aaron, my husband, always goes, he goes, whatever is your latest ADHD obsession. So this year he was like, fuchsias and hydrangeas you were getting excited about. Last year it was hostas. And but I said to you, but I still love them. And I just become really inspired by them. And then I go, but I've collected them now. They're in the garden.
Yeah, I know you need to
collect
another thing.
And then I see something else and I go, well, I want that. And the latest thing has been climbers.
Okay.
And
clematis and...
No. So I bought a load the other week that I can't remember any of the names of any of them. One was, is it Abelia or was it Habelia? It's a vine.
Mm-hmm. Like a trumpet vine?
No. It's small flowers and it's like sausages on it, basically, if it's seeds. And then I've really got into Schizophragma, which I believe has been renamed because it was Schizophragma hydronoides, but I think it's now hydrangea.
Yeah.
Because you're going, well, it looks like a hydrangea. It should have been one from the start. So I really fell in love with those, but so did the vine weevil. And so there's different things that I go through, and sort of I've got an sort of ornamental kiwi at the moment, and wisterias. We've got multiple wisterias, but they're sort of, most of them have been trained as in what I'd call sort of like a tree pruning kind of type,
like a cloud.
And so yeah, it's climbers at the moment, and I've got a few exotic ones that are going to go indoors. So I've got an exotic passion fruit the other day. I don't know where it's going to go. I just get caught in the moment, and you come home and you're trying to smuggle them in.
Well, that's the mark of a true plants person, that is, isn't it? Really?
I don't think I know anyone different.
Again, no. There's an agave outside that I saw at a garden centre just over a year ago, because Mark ended up buying it for me for my birthday, and I just sort of picked it up and I couldn't put it down. It's like I've got it. It's like, you don't need that. No, I don't need it, but I have to have it. I just simply can't put it down. I have to have it. And everybody that sees it goes, goodness me, look at the variegation on that. It's like, yeah, that's even for that particular variety. It's
I love a bit of variegation.
Yeah, it's very, very spiky. It's very spiky indeed. It's very angry, but yeah, I do love it.
I do think actually I will say at the moment one of my favourites is a jasmine. So it's Trachysponium asiaticum tricolour, which is, I call it the pink leaf jasmine.
Yeah.
And actually, and I know a lot of people don't like pink leaves or variegated leaves, and I'm kind of, I suppose, with Matthew Pottage on this in the sense of I really like plants that do have irrigation and things, but
because he obviously has his greenhouse of curiosities, I think. Is that the right phrase he uses for it? I can't remember. He was on the podcast in season 2, but he was talking about, and he's got a little tiny greenhouse in his tiny little garden in central London, just absolutely packed full of the most amazing succulents from. And again, he had to leave a lot of them behind I think his mum moved out of their family home. His parents moved, and they had to sort of either house all your plants yourselves or dispose of them. He had some tough decisions to make, but he's got some exquisite houseplants as well.
Yeah, I see them and I go, where did you get that? So the latest one was Aspidistra we was talking about. But so the pink leaf jasmine is a firm favourite at the moment. It's slow growing, it's a good ground cover.
Yeah.
It is reactive if we have a really cold winter, so it will defoliate. But where we are, and we've been growing it this year in London, and it seems to be doing quite well, especially for something that perhaps is a bit more moisture loving. Yeah. It's done quite well in our drier areas as well. So I just think it's really fun because it's like, I can't say this on here, but it's,
you can say whatever you want on
it's what I would call
this is a safe space.
It's what I would call fuck off pink.
Okay, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's and people go, yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's just in your face. It's pink and it's proud of it.
Yeah, but I think that's great.
So going back to your work, if we can, how far in advance are you planning and having to source and lay your hands on stock?
Some things are 24 hours.
Okay. Goodness me, that's fast.
It's we have a joke at work.
That's Deliveroo kind of.
It brings a whole new meaning to just in time as a supply model. And we have a joke at work. When do you want this yesterday?
Yeah.
It's just and then other things when we're trying to be sensible and planning, and we're planning a year and a half in advance, and we're trying to get that longer along. And partly because it's a part of a model of how do we bring prices down. Yeah.
And can you do that by sort of committing to stock in place for places on a longer term scale?
It's much cheaper for us to be able to grow with a supplier than it is to just be buying from the market.
Yes, yeah, because again, you're then determined by marketplace and your own demand for that product. I'm assuming pushes the price up.
Well, yeah, because when I'm ordering, and it's not 3. Yeah, you're sticking noughts on the end. Yeah, and we're clearing, and we buy pretty much through one entity, and then who buys on our behalf. So I will line up other nurseries that we're working with, but for ease of moving. Paperwork.
Who's your reminder?
I think so. So where I was going is we use a supplier that one main supplier, and we have a few other little ones, but a lot of the other nurseries go through that. It's to simplify our buying process. And we work with a guy called Lewis Norman, who's very well known across the industry, big ginger bubbly Scottish guy. And he pretty much, I'm going, Lewis, that plant I mean, the one that looks like this, is a fly that has joined.
There was a butterfly in here earlier, so yeah.
And he's really good as well in helping us, and he'll find things, and then I find things, and we work with them, and they manage a lot of that on our behalf. Yeah. Because that helps free our time up, but that's also with some of our lines why we probably pay them more, because they do a lot of stuff for us. And they're a great entity to work with, and so we are trying to get more away from that, and we're a space where we have to have POs raised before things can move, and there's a lot of things as the PO's coming out, it's on its way to us. Because it's just
there's that symbiotic and level of trust between the supplier and the person,
and because we work, we pretty much all the people we buy from in our department are they're British businesses and they're small businesses. Now, don't get me wrong, we, like everyone else, still have to buy things from Holland. Yeah. And I do have a trade account for Holland if I need it. But our primary is for that. So we're measured on how much British stock we're buying, how many British businesses we're buying from, how much of that is peat-free, how much is that of what is left, the plastic,
Yeah.
how much of that have we been able to send back?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we have things with our suppliers, so these materials can go back to be recycled, or we have stuff that goes through our systems as well. So we are really trying all of those processes, going back to that sort of question about sustainability earlier. But yeah, that sort of looking forward, we're trying to get that longer and longer as possible.
Yeah.
Just to try and take out the shocks to the system, because I think if I look at like a before COVID world and an after COVID world, you know, is that actually the shocks we now deal with as an industry are quite severe, and I don't think people talk about it enough, that actually as an industry we get hit by Brexit, we get hit by energy shocks, we get hit by political shocks. You know, when I'm trying to explain to people, I'm going, well, why is this happening? You know, why are the prices spiking? I'm going, well, you've got to understand who's producing the plants. Where does the baby stock for those plants come from? Without getting
and how many times has it passed along the chain, and how many factors it had to deal with on the way here?
It's going, you know, it's going. Some of these materials are coming from Europe.
Yeah.
But then if it's from Europe or if it's in the UK, we have no control over energy prices.
No.
Then climate last year was horrendous for everyone. There was whole lines of plants that people just went, we're not sending it out, it's rotted. You know, we bought loads of what's that baby petunia called? Calibrachoa.
Yeah.
And
million bells, as it used to be called.
And because it works really well for us. So last year I went, I'm going to do it, not feeling the weather enough. And
again, how could you plan it? I mean, it literally did nothing but rain.
Absolutely pointless. Yeah. And I went, I've just spent a lot of money on stuff that's just rotted.
Just turns to
mush. There's nothing we can do about that. We just have to work with that moment. So, yeah, there's lots of things we're working with them, and we're growing more and more every year.
Mm-hmm.
And we are, and don't get me wrong, if it's grown here, it's much more resilient.
Yeah.
You know, if it's coming off, especially if I think it's coming off like a Dutch line, it looks great, but it has to go through a lot of conditioning.
Yeah, it has to go through a acclimatisation process.
Because otherwise we end up with what we call sudden death syndrome. So you pull it out and you come back the next day and it's like
those trolleys full of stuff outside home base and B&Q and Lidl's and whatever,
And it's nothing against the Dutch.
The trolleys of death.
At all, like, you know, they've got what they do down to a T.
When I was managing garden centre, we used to call it frost fodder.
Yeah,
literally just feed the frost, feed Jack Frost with it, trolleys and trolleys and trolleys of it. Because they'd be out buying it Easter, they'd be mad for it, all buying marigolds and petunias and geraniums, and you say, don't put them out there. Anyway, the same people would return 3-4 weeks later when the May bank holiday turned up and buy it all again.
And this is it, and a big thing as well of what we're trying to do is put more horticulture into what we're doing.
Yeah.
So we're using a lot more different species and shapes and forms and getting people used to... So I've been trying to pull people away from topiary and using forms that perhaps do that naturally.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if that's a Fastigia taxus or if it's a type of conifer that grows slightly differently. And we've been... And not everyone's convinced always. But I'm going... We as an estate have to become much more passive in the way we operate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have a vast area to cover with things that are always, you know, up against us.
Yeah.
And so the last thing I want to be doing is having to prune that.
Yeah.
If I can
3 or 4 times a year.
If I can have something that's going to do that, and you go, look, everyone else is doing that.
That lovely cloud-formed Japanese ligustrum I've got on my front door is a bane of my life. I wish I'd never planted it, because literally every 6 weeks I need to clip it.
Yeah,
I can't leave it alone.
It's like our wisteria at home. It is pruned at the moment every week.
Yeah,
and people say grows about a foot a day.
People say to me, "Well, can you not leave it? Can you not leave it?" So, well, if I wanted a giant splodge on sticks, yes, I could leave it, but I didn't buy a giant splodge on sticks. I bought 3 balls on sticks.
And we're doing a lot more of that, trying to bring things in, and you know, we don't always get it right, and lots of times we do get it right.
Yeah.
And
well, by the sounds of things, you're having the conversations and you're doing the research on things. So again, kudos to you. But by the sounds of it, you're putting an awful lot of effort into this. I hope people, when they're looking at the installations walking around the estate that you work on, you know, in central London, that they're actually looking at it thinking, goodness me, there's a lot gone into the planning of this. I'm not going into the thoughtfulness of it. And
we are, there is, you know, the client we work for very much appreciate the work that everyone does, and but you know, this is this thing we're trying to I think what's interesting is, you know, we're not a famous garden or horticultural, you know, institute.
Yeah.
So
that's seen by how many millions of people every year?
Yeah, but it doesn't necessarily get picked up for its horticulture.
No.
Which is something I want to change.
Again, I wonder how many tens of thousands of pictures have taken by your installations every single year, you know, and travel across the world.
I can, you know, there's, you know, in the years I've worked for that estate, there's certain things.
We should Google reverse it, shouldn't we? Image reverse it and see it and find them.
And there's certain things that always crop up. So I remember we did a floral piano, which is which a lot of people remember, and that's
picked up by Harkness Roses this year.
Was it?
Yeah, and kind of copied a little bit at Hampton Court and at Chelsea.
So we did that, and I remember. So that sits still, I believe, in the top 3 most successful displays ever put into Covent Garden.
Really?
And that's not, I don't just mean plant displays. This is exhibits. You know, there's always stuff going through there. And this was a space, we'd done something for the spring. We'd had quite a cold start. And the director of marketing called me. She was like, Kenny Reibold. She was like, that space. She went, I know it's not woken up yet. She went, but can we think of something we could add?
Yeah, can we liven it up somehow?
You know, I'm like, yeah, of course. I went, look, small budget, I'll leave it to you. And they're really good for that. And it's like, you make it work. Just come up with something. And you're like, well...
So where did the piano come from?
So I'm sat there in my car going, what the hell are we going to do? Like, you know... Last Halloween we craned like Europe's biggest pumpkin in, at that point. And it was, I'm sat there and going, right, with flowers, what else? West End, theatre, music, and it had to be about us. You know, big thing is about, we try to do stuff that's true to us, we don't want to copy people. Don't get me wrong, we get influenced by people, but we also want to be the people that are influenced.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'd like some sort of floral piano. And I'd seen something done with cut flowers. I was like, but I want this to be a flower pot. Mm-hmm. So I'm Googling and I can't find anything. And I could see stuff like someone had done one with a few pansies on it. Yeah. And then there's, you know, the things you see that are done by these florists, you know, in like $1 billion weddings or whatever it's called. And you're going, well, we're not going to do that. And so I sort of sketch something up, so everything that pretty much we deliver gets sketched first, so it can go over for, look, this is what's coming outside my head. And
see, there you've lost me. I can't sketch. I can't draw.
So the director,
you could look. I can barely write.
The director of marketing
nearly illiterate.
Like, apparently squealed with excitement, which I was like, that's brilliant. And she was like, just do it. She went, what's the budget? I was like, it's going to be a couple of grand, which for us is really cheap for bringing a display in. And so I feel guilty for this, but knowing baby grand pianos and any piano, they hit an age and they're kind of defunct. Mm-hmm. And, you know...
Again, with all due respect, who's got room for them?
But if they're not looked after, they're kind of, you know...
Just something to put picture frames on.
But they also become pretty unplayable.
Yeah.
And so it was a beautiful piece of furniture. And I'd like to think... we give it some sort of kind of, you know, we gave it a really good end to its life. And it wasn't a lot.
Its final song
I think
beautiful.
We paid like 300 quid for it. And,
still quite a lot of money then.
Not for pianos like that.
Yeah, okay.
And so, you know, bear in mind this thing's like 150 years old. It's all like walnut. And it sounds horrendous.
I can see you grimacing. You're almost recoiling from it.
Because it was a beautiful piece of furniture and I trashed it. But it's like, that's art in its own right. Yeah. And so what we did is we had a guy called Monty who does moves lots of stuff for us. So he went and collected it. And so it was like, right, we got it installed at night. And then we had a sort of fake top put into it. Yeah. So what we could then do was build all our boxes and line it to keep the moisture out. Because bear in mind, this was a living exhibit that was also still playable. Mm-hmm. So it was designed to go for 2 weeks, and it stayed for 9.5 months. And by the end, it had to go because I was like, it's on its last legs. I'd already rebuilt all the key base on the front.
Yeah.
You know, the level of maintenance was becoming harder because I was like, pianos are not designed to be wet.
And carrying.
But it still played to the end. It was a bit dongy here and there. But that was kind of the fun of it. But what made
it... Turned into a honky-tonk from a Western movie.
Yeah. But, you know, and I remember seeing this kid playing Bohemian Rhapsody on it. I was like, that was brilliant.
Yeah.
And that's why we're doing it. And it was... by the end, you're just going, oh, you know, it's sad. But what made it successful was the fact it was, you could touch it, you could smell it, you could play it and you could hear it. Mm-hmm. And these are all really powerful things when you're creating designs for people.
They are.
Because a lot of people just stop on the visual.
Yeah.
And it's the other senses that we don't actually touch upon, which are actually the more powerful ones that create legacy in a space. Or I talk
about this a lot when I review a rose. It's how the emotion it stirs in me, the fragrance, the form, the texture, all of those things. And hopefully I do it well. Massively 4 million views, so I can't be doing it too badly. But yeah, it's how it, and some of them will literally, that one up there on the mantelpiece, that made the hairs on my back of my neck stand up. Just absolutely lovely. And that's a rose. That's not new variety. That's 1983. That was bred. Mm-hmm. That was, and it's been knocking about. Now I've never seen it, and it arrived. And it's like, goodness me, look at you! And it came out of the box. It's like, oh, okay, that's the kind of, how do I describe that, and how does it make me feel?
And, you know, it's like everything we design for there, I've always said, I design it through the 6-year-old me.
Yeah.
And so, like, when we did the pumpkin, the first year we did the pumpkin.
Now, where on earth did you get them?
Well...
And are they grown for you, or are you just laying your hands on?
So they're grown in Hampshire.
Okay, yeah.
By two brothers, Ian and Stuart Payton. And they are, I believe they grow things.
They grow giant veg.
No, what are those sodding red plants we all buy at Christmas called?
Poinsettias.
That's the ones. For retail. So they do this for fun.
Mm-hmm. So they've got large amounts of covered space.
Yes.
Yeah, they've got big greenhouses somewhere.
The way-off's happening on the edge of Southampton every year. Yeah. And people from all over the country.
Well, it happens at the Victoria Country Park.
Yes.
Queen-Victoria Country Park. I've been.
And so that year, and anyway, I had, again, with the director of marketing, had a conversation about Halloween. And was like, Kenny, darling, look, I don't know, get me like London's biggest pumpkin. And the idea of using pumpkins...
I mean, does it have to be from London? You're saying, I don't think I'm going to get a huge pumpkin from central London, but I could get one from... I could get one from 140 miles away.
And it was different then as well about using pumpkins. As a lot of people don't like using pumpkins now.
So, I mean, it's a very American concept. I mean, go to Caesar's Palace and they'll be full of pumpkins.
It's also, obviously, people are more, very concerned about the waste element of pumpkins. Mm-hmm. And, my argument here is this is a public environment where in the first week we did that, we had 100,000 extra visitors. Mm-hmm. So, which would not have seen that.
No.
And this already existed. The boys grow this because they can and it's fun.
Yeah.
And I'm not...
Again, it's almost very similar to that of the argument against cut Christmas trees, isn't it? That a lot of people will be quite offended by the fact that you might buy a cut Christmas tree, and you have to rebuff and say, if I didn't buy a cut Christmas tree, the Christmas tree wouldn't have been grown in the first place. And it wouldn't be stood in a field for 7, 8, 9, 10, 15 years, whatever it might be, as a renewable crop, turning all the time. And actually... I think it's a much better way of...
I'd rather have a real one than the plastic one.
Again, what's the statistic? I think you need to keep a plastic Christmas tree for 7 years. And have you seen a 7-year-old plastic Christmas tree? They look rough. I mean, it looks like a bottle cleaner.
I think it's each to their own. And with that, and I remember when we first done the pumpkin, and there was a few people in the industry that made comments to me like this. And I went, well... Ultimately, we were asked to deliver something, and we did. Mm-hmm. And we craned it in because it was more dramatic, and it got us a load of press.
Yep.
And it created a display that supported the businesses of the area, and enhanced what we was doing, but also created access to lots of people that wouldn't have had access to such a thing. Now, and I don't think we should not be growing these things. obviously if we were all growing giant pumpkins, we're going to use a lot of resources very quickly. But the fact two brothers in Hampshire are doing this for fun, and we're like, yeah, we'll sell you this, but we're not sure if we'll be able to until like the day before, because sometimes they just pop and go wrong. And it went brilliant. So we had to insure the inside of it, and because the seeds are worth a fortune. And interestingly,
they do sell
a
for
high
awful lot of
rate
money.
of infertility in these giant pumpkins.
Really?
Which I'm not surprised about. We're pushing the extremes of them.
Yeah.
And
what did it, so the people listening, how big was it? I mean, I've seen pictures of this pumpkin. How big are we talking? What sort of weight are we talking? It's about the size of this table, isn't it?
Yeah, it was massive.
Yeah.
I've forgotten
about
now.
4 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot high.
It was that year was the biggest in Europe, and the second biggest ever grown in the world.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, I've not just got you the biggest ever in the UK, I've got you the biggest in Europe and the second biggest ever in the world. So I was like, well happy. And it was so exciting to do it. But I remember this thing being cranked in, going, please don't just like the
just
drop out of it.
Just drop it and explode.
But then the sad thing is, we did have to have security on it.
Yeah.
Because everyone wants to poke it.
Yeah, or jump on it, or stand on it.
And you're going, it's not that I want to discourage that, but obviously it needs to be here for like 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
And if we do that, it's going to be mush by the end of it.
And I'm assuming the brothers had the pumpkin back afterwards.
Right
assumption to make?
So we gave them all the seeds back.
Okay.
And then we disposed of the pumpkin.
Okay.
And to those going, why can't you eat it? You wouldn't want to eat it, and not with 100,000 people touching it.
No.
It's and those.
So let's face it, the big varieties don't taste very good. They don't cook very well. They're big because they're full of water and nothing else.
It was lovely to be able to do it when we've done it, and we won't ever do it again because we've done it.
See, I love pumpkins. You don't have to justify this to me.
No, and it's these are the questions
they make me very happy.
In a lot of the work I do that we have to answer. Because especially now, because people are questioning why we're doing that, and sometimes I go just because it's fun, and if
there has to be a certain element of that.
There does, because we can end up as I said earlier, too much of a purist about everything, and you go, well, what's the point to existence if we're not going to do anything? It's about trying to keep within the sort of restraints of our bank account of materials. And in this scenario, it was it already exists. We're just putting it in a space that more people can see it.
Yes, giving it a platform.
And we were able to do that, and I think that was a really nice thing to do.
Yeah.
And it also showed children that giant vegetables do, or fruits, do exist. And then the second year we did it again, and we stuck it on a carriage. Because why not? Because you're going to do that. Yeah. And
let's face it, every child dreams of a pumpkin carriage, don't they?
And we did that, but and then we continued, and we still continue to do different things.
Yeah.
It's as I was saying, where we are now has a slightly different approach to where we were pre-COVID.
Yeah. Well, I think we better wrap things up, and we've talked for a long, long time today. I really want to thank you for your time. It's been really exciting to listen to you talk, and very, very educational. I don't think a lot of people that have seen the displays that you're responsible for will have had any idea just how much work behind the scenes by a very few members of staff actually go into actually creating that. And an awful lot of attention to detail goes into creating what you do. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. It's been nice to sort of ramble away.
Do head over to Raybould and Wild and have a look at Kenny's Instagram. Give him a little bit of a like and a follow and a share. Check in with what you're up to at work, and obviously your beautiful garden at home. I must touch base quickly because it's on my notes. You opened your garden.
Yes, we did.
How did it go? Because I open my garden often and it can be really hit or miss. How did you get on?
So the first half an hour, no one turned up.
It's always terrible.
And
you get this sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach.
And it was our friend who was like... we had some friends from the WI and a sort of cancer group that had agreed to come and do scones, because you're like, this is a really British affair. We've got to do it properly, haven't we? And it was done for Bloom as a way to raise money for stuff that we run later in the year. And at first I was like, oh, well, this is really sad, isn't it? Because I was like, it's a small garden, so we're not an NGS sized garden.
No.
So a few people started coming through, And then before I know it, there was actually quite a few people through because
Wonderful.
I was just kept talking. And then I think it sort of the highlight was when I turned around to Aaron. I was like, half the sodding council are outside.
Yeah.
And there's our local councillors, but obviously where for us Labour took the council in the last election, they all became much more important in their roles. And so these are really notable political figures within our city. They're going, oh, yeah. And they went, is the back garden open as well, Kelly? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, well, we've heard about this. And it was like, we want to come and see
lovely.
this. So that was really lovely. And I think it was really lovely that they showed that support to turn up. So, we was really happy. I was like, it was worth doing. And it showed people a slice of Plymouth they perhaps haven't seen.
Wonderful. A little peek behind the veil of the craziness of your
The
mind.
madness of our little world.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me today, Kenny. It's been an absolute pleasure. Take good care. As you can tell, I could have talked to Kenny for absolutely hours on a multitude of different subjects, and it's always a pleasure to catch up with him. I have to extend my personal thanks to Kenny for making the Gardener Ben podcast his first podcast appearance in a very, very long time, after a brief break from social media. Now back to what I'm getting onto in the garden this week. Now, as you all know, from season 1 and from season 2, I'm very basic when it comes to looking after my own dahlias. I don't tend to lift them and instead leave them in the ground and play a little bit of a roulette game. But I do like to offer dahlias that are left in the ground a good mulching over of something dry, open and quite fairly fluffy. So I tend to use chipped bark, which I just place 3 or 4 shovelfuls on the top of each crown, making sure that I'm cutting the stems nice and long once the frost has actually blackened the growth off. This does one of 2 things. It stops water going down into the tuber through the actual stems and rotting the tuber in the ground. And the big fluffy lump of mulch on top of it offers it a little bit of protection, keeping it deeper under the soil and keeping a little bit of the moisture off of it. So that's what I'm off out into the garden to do now. I suggest you get this job done somewhere in the very beginning of November before the frosts get too bad. The podcast next week is heading up to Scotland, and I get to talk to Ethan, who was actually brought up very close to me here in the New Forest. Ethan is a plant and soil ecologist and an RHS Chelsea Flower Show medalist. Now, his passion for his chosen subject in ecology and soil science absolutely shines through the conversation. So I hope that you'll join myself and Ethan on episode 6 next week. Until then, happy gardening. The Gardener Ben podcast is brought to you in association with Peter Beals Roses, winner of 30 Chelsea Gold medals and creating timeless roses since 1968. Shop online at www.peterbealsroses.com and make sure that you're following along on Instagram and TikTok.